You don't need to be perfect in order to become a creative genius. You just need to be perfectly and creatively you. Hello everybody, my name is Jeffery Allen Ford. In 2016, I won a global election to become the World Genius Directory's 2016 Genius of the Year for America. And in 2018, I won the Vedic Guild's Genius of the Year award as well. I'm also a TED speaker, and I'm also a published author who's been read by millions of people in newspapers and magazines around the world, and I'm also a published short story writer and poet as well. Our masterclass today is all about helping you to become just supercharged as a creator in ways that you've never been before. And we'll be going over 15 lessons that I've developed that will help you to become very creative, not just in art, but hopefully in all areas of your life as well. So let's dare to be different, dare to be great, and let's start getting more and more creative. Lesson number 1, become a creature of spontaneous creativity just by being you. Creativity extends far beyond just the areas of painting, drawing, sculpting, cooking, what have you. Creativity can also lead to some of the most unforgettable moments of our lives. I'll never forget when I was in my early 20s, I was going for a walk, and I saw this lady pushing a stroller. And it was a large stroller. And I looked inside. And inside that stroller was the most perfect form of humanity that I could ever possibly have imagined. She was 100% pure energy, pure happiness, and pure love. And she was also the very first child with Down syndrome that I'd ever seen in my life. She was 5 to 6 years old. She hadn't learned how to walk or speak yet. And yet she was so enthused by my presence simply because I'm me and because I was paying attention to her. And she was truly giving me a master class in what it was to be totally accepted unconditionally and what pure love really was. Was she challenged? Yes, she was very, very challenged. And I don't minimize that. But in her very own way, she was the most perfect person I'd ever seen in my life. She created such a powerful moment for me that I know I will never forget it for as long as I live. Now, if a little girl like her can create such magical moments and create such beauty, just imagine what you can do with all of your skills, all of your knowledge, and all of your ability to create things that can last, that will be beautiful forever. And when you think about life that way, you realize just how important your life truly is and just what you're capable of achieving if you'll merely let your guard down, relax, and just simply share from your heart and your spirit who you truly are. And when you do that, when you live what you are, success will naturally come to you. Lesson number 2, you have to dare to be different if you are ever going to dare to be great. Think about it for a moment. Who has ever created a masterpiece by thinking and creating just like everybody else? The answer is nobody. You have to dare to be different, and you have to dare to be yourself if you're ever going to dare to be great. You truly are a one-of-a-kind masterpiece. The works of Da Vinci, Michelangelo, Mozart, Monet, they've all been reproduced millions of times over. Not only that, but we have millions of people who are carbon copies out there who are just reproducing the same things over and over and over again. But we only have one you in this world, and that is your advantage. Because while there are millions of copies and reproductions out there, there is only one you. And you have to really absorb that and take that in and use that to do terrific things. And you'll find that there are things that only you could ever do. So find your niche, find your passion, infuse yourself into that, and you'll find that the world can be yours, and the world will be very much improved because of the creative element that you have placed into the world. Lesson number 3. Make being creative more than just something you do. Make it an integral part of who you are. There are so many ways that you can add creativity to our world. You can start just with your lifestyle. You can look at the foods that you prepare every day, right? And the foods that you go out and purchase in restaurants. And you can find things that are different. You can add color, you can add taste, you can change the textures. You can just come up with your own, I do that. You can come up with your own recipes. I have a lot of fun using different kinds of curry in my meals. And you can have just a lot of fun with the foods that you prepare. And that's something that you do on a daily basis. Another thing you do on a daily basis is you dress yourself. And you can have a lot of fun with that. You can continually renew yourself with different styles, different looks. You can purchase different fabrics and have different feels on your skin. And you can just change your mood by changing your clothes. It's really true. Another thing you can do is your home design. What type of home do you live in? What kind of home do you want to live in? While maybe you might not be able to purchase the home of your dreams, you can certainly decorate it on the inside, even on a budget, in a way that really is in tune with who you are as a human being. And I encourage you to do that. And when you use creativity, even like, for example, the ways that you go to work, or when you go from point A to point B, take different routes, see different things, put different things in your head. Just be creative. And when you're creative in all these little different aspects of your life, when you sit down or stand up, depending on how your creativity is going to manifest, it won't feel so different for you to be someone who's creative, because you're creative all the time. This is just another way that you manifest it. So if you're a writer, a painter, a sculptor, whatever, if you're busy creating all day long great experiences and such, it will be easier, so much easier, when you go to be creative. And I encourage you to make creativity a part of your life. Lesson number 4. Daydream and allow your subconscious self to reign supreme. Daydreaming is artistically necessary because it's where our true subconscious comes to life. And when you're daydreaming, you are completely free to daydream however you please. It's your thoughts. And I mentioned earlier that I'm a writer who's been read by millions of people. It is amazing how many ideas come completely out of the blue when I'm thinking about something else entirely, just gazing off into nowhere. Things just come to me. And I've had so many of my best ideas that pretty much write themselves by daydreaming. So daydreaming is not a waste of time. You need to listen to that subconscious part of yourself because it has knowledge and it really is a very honest part of who you are. And if you want to get in touch with who you are, get in touch with your daydreams. Allow yourself to be the person that you are. Lesson number 5. Before you decide to take on a new creative venture, ask yourself 4 very basic questions. Question number 1. Ask yourself, is there a net positive to be gained by my working on this creative project? That's a very important question because your time is valuable. You only have so much time in life. One way that you can decide whether something is worth doing or not is to perform what's called a force field analysis. A force field analysis is kind of just a fancy way of saying a list of the pros and the cons, and then you weigh them. You can weigh them individually and then weigh them all up and compare the pros to the cons. So put up on top what the project is that you might be working on. And then on the left-hand side, write the pros. Then on the right-hand side, write the cons. And sometimes, like you might have 128 different pros, great things that could happen. But if one of the cons could be potential death, almost certain death, you might want to go, that one thing really outweighs all the others. So it's not a matter of how many pros and how many cons. It's a matter of how much these things mean to you. And this really helps to put things in line. Question number 2 is this a project I really want to be associated with in the future? That's an important question because the things that we do, especially during the day of the internet, has a way of following us around for years and years to come. So if you don't want to be linked with a certain thing, don't do it. Just don't. Question number 3. Can I really afford to take this risk if it doesn't work out? Because after that creative thing is over and the thrill is done and you have all the applause and accolades, whatever, that's when things get really great. But that does not always happen, does it? No. So you have to weigh the risk versus the reward. And that's a very personal question that only you can answer for yourself. And think about it very carefully. And question number 4, is this proposed creative project worth the opportunity cost in many different ways? What is opportunity cost? Opportunity cost is the opportunity that you miss out on by doing one thing instead of everything else that you could be doing. For example, the opportunity cost of your writing a book will be the hours and hours and hours and hours that you could be spending doing many, many, many other different things. The opportunity cost for painting is also the years of study, and also the cost, the financial cost of the paints, the easels, the brushes, and maybe the locations if you want to travel to places in order to paint things. So there is an opportunity cost, and you have to really look at things and gauge it and say, is this worth what it is that I'm going to be doing? And if it is, go ahead and do it. But if it's not, it might be better to back away at least for a while until that opportunity cost is something that you're willing to pay. Lesson number 6. Embrace both success and failure as positive elements in the creative process. The first step on the way to achieving creative success is to develop a detailed vision of what creative success means for you. For some people, creative success is where I mentioned earlier, just living a creative life. And if that's the case, this video is for you. And if your idea of creative success is very context dependent, let's say you enjoy the same routines every day and all that type of thing, that's great, that's fine, that's who you are. But you can also make yourself the person who does take those chances and those risks as well. So you want to weigh all that together, and you also want to embrace failure as well. It's easy to handle success and to see success for what you want it to be, either context dependent or just general creative, being creative. Failure, however, can really hurt. But failure is also how we learn how we can grow. And if you're just to succeed all the time, life would be great. But a lot of times, it's overcoming those failures. Even in the creative process, I have had times where I will work on the same paragraph hours and hours and maybe just go, forget it, this is not happening, I'll work on it tomorrow. The very next day I sit down, boom, And when that happens, it feels euphoric because you've overcome an obstacle. And you've done something that maybe for a while you thought was impossible. So look at failure as a way for you to grow. And that's overcoming these things. And by the way, the more failures that you overcome, the more you'll learn to believe in yourself too. So be thankful for these things. Creative lesson number 7. Create ways where your senses commingle with your emotions. We live in a multi-sensory world where every single one of our senses has the capacity to stir up profound emotions within us. I'll give you a few examples. Just think about the emotions that you feel just from looking at a newborn baby. Think about the purity, the love. It's not just a visual, it's in your heart. You feel it. You feel it. And also, think about the smell of a freshly baked cookie. Imagine you're in a bakery and you just smell this cookie. It could be just a chocolate chip cookie. It doesn't have to be anything exotic. And that smell of that cookie might take you back to a time when you were a small child and a very loving grandma who may no longer be here today, who loved you so much. She leaned over with so much love and handed you that chocolate chip cookie. And that cookie had so much love in it. It's not just flour and chips and sugar. No. It has so much love. And that cookie isn't just a cookie. I mean, it's your family. It's love. It's delicious. So that sense of taste and that sense of smell also comes with a whole bunch of emotions as well. And by the way, a hug is never just a hug. A hug always means something. It could be a casual, hey, how you doing? Nice to see you. Or it could be a very warm and caring hug, maybe a consoling hug. And it could be the saddest goodbye you'll ever have in your life. I remember the last time I saw my father alive. I hugged him and kissed him on the side of his head. And that hug meant something. And all 5 of our senses are intertwined with our emotions. And if you really want to create great art, what you need to do is you can hit the most perfect note in the best order possible, all the notes in the best order possible, and they'll be beautiful. But if these notes are accompanied by feeling, real heart, it becomes something completely different entirely. And you can write a poem where all the words are just beautiful words and it sounds great coming through your mouth and when you read it silently in your head. But if that poem has heart, that's the best. That is absolutely the best. So when you're creating a painting or you're writing or you're sculpting, don't just make something visual. Don't just make something auditorially beautiful. Make something that really touches the heart, and that will go a long way in terms of making your art timeless. Lesson number 8. Make your creativity timeless by using universal themes. Some art is of the moment. It's here today and gone later today. Some art, however, you'd like to have stick around. And there's ways that you can go about doing that. One of the best ways of doing that is by incorporating universal themes. Universal themes are timeless themes because there are certain experiences that we human beings have that are generational, they're eternal. For example, a loving relationship, the loss of a love, the love of family, the heartbreak of betrayal by a friend, the death of a loved. There's so many different universal themes. And if you gear what you're creating along that path, again, whether it's a painting or a writing, a sculpture, but things that everybody can relate to, you'll go a long way in terms of having it in people's head long after they view, witness, or hear what it is that you've created. The other thing is, with universal themes, the greatest theme that there is, the greatest universal theme, is that of a flawed and challenged individual. And the reason why the theme of a flawed and challenged individual is so powerful is because we're all flawed and we're all challenged people, every single one of us. At each stage of our life, we've had to overcome. We've had to take on obstacles and odds. And little babies, you see, they get, to the point to where they can push away from you. And you celebrate that. It's like, oh, look, they're pushing away. And then after a while, you go, hey, stop that. I just want to hold you for a while. But it's beautiful. It's growth. We're always changing. We're always developing. Little kids can't tie their shoes. They're challenged. They can't do it. And then you see the look of joy on their face when they're able to do it. My TED Talk, I mentioned that I gave a TED Talk earlier, was all about how when I was younger, I hated how different I was from everybody else. It made me feel less than everybody else. And I was ashamed of myself. I have Asperger's syndrome, which is a form of autism. So socially, I find that challenging. And I have tremendous sensory acuity, which in ways is great because it's good to have very keen hearing. And I also have photosensitivity in my eyes, where sunlight, I don't really care for sunlight, and I keep my home pretty dark. And when you combined the social challenges and then the challenges of the outward world, being kind of painful from a sensory perspective, I just hated it because everybody wants to, be popular and stuff, but that wasn't where I was. And so I was ashamed of myself. And now I could not be happier with who I am because those challenges that I faced and learned to overcome or in the terms of sensory things, at least learned how to deal with more effectively. These things have made me stronger. Now that's my story. Now when I tell my story up on stage or to you, I also do it in a way where I'm telling your story too. Because what are the obstacles that you've faced in your life that you've overcome? I guarantee that you've had so many victories in your life. These things are great stories. They're universal themes of overcoming. Think about the things that you've overcome and use those things in your art, in your stories, and later we'll discuss in your personal narrative as well. Lesson number 9. Never ever censor yourself while you're busy brainstorming. There's 2 rules for brainstorming. Rule number 1, I just mentioned. Never ever ever censor yourself while you're brainstorming. Do not do it. Because you might come up with the stupidest idea humanly imaginable. Just something you're ashamed to even thought of. All right? Write it down. And that's rule number 2. Write everything down. You don't want to forget it, and you want to keep what you've written down basically forever, because you never know when you can use this stuff in the years ahead. And when you come up with ideas that are really stupid, and it might be very, very stupid, you can use these things sometimes in future projects. Another thing that's fun to do when you come up with an idea that, why in the world did I think of that, is examine why in the world did you think of that. And that can come up with things that will give you self-knowledge as well. And then you can use that to know yourself better. And that makes you a better creator as well. Lesson number 10. It's often better to keep your creative ideas to yourself. Generally speaking, it's often better to stay quiet about what you're developing and what you're creating while you're creating it. Because when you share what you're doing with other people, you'll find that people will want to give you their input, they'll want to give you their perspective, and they might give you their criticism. Well, all of those things might be valid, but you're getting other voices inside of your head when you need to think purely from who you are and what you bring to the table. Not only that, you don't want to talk your ideas away. You want to keep these things yours, proprietary, if you will. And by doing that, you're able to go through the creative process with fresh eyes. And that's incredibly important. Now, if you're collaborating with other people, that's a whole different ballgame. Because, well, one thing I'd encourage you to do is to work on your ideas before proposing these ideas to other people. Because you want to look polished and you want to look professional. But beyond that, if you're working more solitary, definitely consider at least keeping your ideas to yourself and getting that good feeling about your idea from what you're actually doing and what you're producing. Lesson number 11. Create whatever you're passionate about while you're still really passionate about it. You want to immediately create whatever you're passionate about when you're really feeling it, because that passion is power. You can see it, feel it, smell it, sense it, taste it even. And these are the things that bring life to your art. So do things when you're really feeling it. And when you're feeling passionate about something, anything, you're in spirit. And when you're in spirit, you're inspired. And that is when great things happen. So take immediate action and let things flow wherever it goes. And then the very best of you will come to life. Lesson number 12. Stretch yourself before you wreck yourself. You gotta stretch yourself before you wreck yourself, Because if you're not busy developing who you are as a creator, as an artist, as a human being, then you're busy dying. You're dying inside. You're dying as a creator. So constantly be stretching yourself. Stretching yourself also helps to keep you more timely and relevant, because you might need to know about, I don't know, new brushes, new technologies, how the marketplace is changing. So there's a lot of ways to keep developing and keep stretching yourself. The other thing is, let's say you're a drawer. Just try, for fun, no pressure. Just try painting. Or maybe try writing a poem about something that you've seen that really moved you. You don't have to be perfect. Just give it a try. And these things do help to stretch yourself. And sometimes, by doing things like that, you learn that, hey, I can do that. And other times you might learn, hey, I can do that, but I don't really enjoy doing that. That's what happened with me with writing short stories. I wrote 3 short stories, and I had all 3 short stories accepted for publication. The number one thing I learned, I don't like writing short stories. I do not like writing fiction. I don't look down on it. I enjoy reading fiction. But that's just not who I am, and that's not how I want to share my gifts. But at least I know. Lesson number 13. Recreate your creative process anytime you please. There should be no over-ritualization when it comes to creating. You don't have to do the same thing today that you've been doing for years and years and years in terms of how you create. Creations are very context dependent, and who you are now is not who you were before, and what motivated you before does not have to be what motivates you now. A lot of people put pressure on themselves. Well, I've always done it that way. That's not a good answer. Okay, that's not a good answer. Now, try different things. And if something doesn't work out, that doesn't mean you should go back to the old thing necessarily. Maybe you should. But it might mean, well, just try this, just try that. And that can lead to new knowledge about who you are. Lesson number 14. Create a compelling personal narrative. One of the biggest mistakes that I see artists making is that they don't really consider what it is that people are buying from them. When you are creating something, anything really, you're not just producing a work, you're also producing your own energy. Why should people want to hear what you have to say, read what you write? Why should they want to have your painting hung up in their home? So you want to create a compelling personal narrative that will make people want to have your energy in their home. This is extremely important. And one of the ways that helps to write a compelling personal narrative is to write about, when we talked earlier about the how we have challenges and flaws. A lot of people love to learn about that. Maybe your challenge is a disability. Maybe your challenge was that you were abused in one way or another. Maybe your challenge has been poverty. This is not anything to be ashamed of. People admire people who either have risen from poverty or are in the process of trying to rise up from poverty. And a lot of people will want to help you out because they'll feel that sense of rapport. Even if they're not poor themselves, they know what it's like to try to be the best that they can be, to improve themselves. And when you show that to other people, that that's who you are and that's what you're doing, that creates a human connection. And they will want to have your energy up on their wall. They'll want to have your energy on their headphones. Okay? So think about what your story is, what your narrative is. And be honest. And don't be ashamed about sharing different things about yourself. It's all a part of who you are, and it's a part of what makes you special. So develop a personal narrative. Not only does it help in terms of your creativity, it helps you in terms of really understanding and appreciating fully who you are and what it is that you have to give to others. This will help you in every facet of your life. And now for our final lesson, lesson number 14. Don't be afraid to magnify or amplify your emotions to make your creations come alive. Go beyond the ordinary and go into the extraordinary by infusing your art with pure emotions. And don't be ashamed either to include things about fear, about shame, about guilt. These are all, or even Schadenfreude. Schadenfreude is the feeling of joy one has when they see someone else's misfortune. And it's kind of why people laugh when they see somebody slip on a banana peel or something, or maybe someone that they never really liked all that much, and they read something negative about them in the paper, they just smile. And I think most of us have felt that one time or another. Of course, not you or me, because we're perfect spiritual beings, but no, these are universal feelings that people have. So don't be ashamed to share things that show your humanity in your art, because when your art is filled with emotion and has emotion, again, it creates that rapport, that feeling of oneness with the person who you're sharing it with. So never ever be ashamed of your emotions and put it in your art. It will make it timeless, because these feelings are timeless, just like you're timeless as well. Well, this brings us to the end of our master class. Please always remember that the world only has just one you in it. So think, live, and love like only you could ever do, because our world truly, truly needs you.